Yeehaw! Yeehaw! Ride 'em cowboy, ride 'em cowboy. Hello little doggies, my name is Chris, but you can call me Ganhu or Chris. It doesn't matter. Back in 2013, a little number called The Lone Ranger hit theaters and it performed terribly. For some reason, a younger version of myself really enjoyed this movie. In a long since deleted Metacritic review, I echoed the same opinions that other moviegoers who shared the same level of intelligence I had when I was 14 years old. A masterpiece, epic, perfection, one of the best live-action films ever made. Do not listen to anyone and watch it. You will really enjoy it. The Lone Ranger is a perfect summer movie. I enjoy watching it even though screenplay wasn't that strong, but the movie doesn't fail to entertain you. Wonderful how a mid-screenplay can earn a 10 out of 10 review from this person. This was a very cool movie, and loved it very much. I always loved the Lone Ranger, and Army played him very well. Johnny Depp also portrayed Tutu quite well. This movie satisfied me very well, and I hope there will be a sequel equally as good. Well, that last one sounded like it was the burner account for the Lone Ranger himself, am I right? What the fuck? If you're unfamiliar with the discourse that surrounded this film when it first hit theaters like I was when I watched it, many people voiced criticism of the casting of Johnny Depp as the Native American +1 to the Lone Ranger, Tonto. For those not in the know, Johnny Depp is not Native American, not by blood at least, but he was honorarily adopted into the Comanche Nation in 2012, but I don't think anyone's gonna point at that and say, oh, well, he can speak on Native American issues, let alone portray them in movies. You might even be asking yourself, why would Johnny Depp be cast as a Native American in The Lone Ranger? Well, that starts to make sense when you start putting the pieces together. Like the fact that this was directed by Gore Verbinski, who directed the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean films, as well as Rango. All of those movies also starred Johnny Depp. The film was produced by Jerry Bruckheimer, the producer of every other Hollywood film that came out in the late 90s and early aughts, as well as the Pirates films. Something I didn't realize until I rewatched this movie was that Johnny Depp is also an executive producer on this film. So of course serial pretendian Johnny Depp made sure he was gonna get his shot to play a Native American in a movie. Now if you're one of those Sigma male Hustler University alums who hates it when they have to hear soy-faced left-leaning little tubers like me bemoan cultural appropriation, don't worry, this movie was also poorly reviewed because it was also a bad movie. That claim is at odds with a younger Chris. Or Ganhu, or Chris, it doesn't matter. And maybe that's because a kid at that age and those social conditions didn't really have stuff like cultural appropriation or good filmmaking on his radar. I saw a trailer for a Disney cowboy movie that had a similar vibe to a Disney pirate movie, and I thought, sign me the fuck up, I'm seeing that. Those Disney pirate movies, those are like the best movies ever at the ripe age of 14. I'm seeing this movie. The movie starts off well after the age of the Wild West in San Francisco, 1933. A vicious little rapscallion visits a nondescript Wild West exhibit and terrorizes an elderly indigenous man.
What is your problem? You insensitive asshole!
But this Native American man has a heart of gold. He quickly forgives the little white boy's transgression and tells the tale of the Lone Ranger. But this ain't your granddaddy's Lone Ranger, because this one robs banks.
Ladies and gentlemen, my colleague and I will be making a withdrawal.
What's with the mask?
This certainly isn't the first movie to be guilty of this trope, but there's something really odd about big budget adaptations being embarrassed by the hokiness of their source material. I'm not going to pretend to be a day one fan of the Lone Ranger radio play or the TV show. Hell, I barely care about the fucking movie. That's about as much as I'm ever gonna care about the Lone Ranger. But what's the point of including gags like this? If it's for the benefit of an older audience, I don't think they're really gonna appreciate the joke if they really do enjoy the earnest silliness of the original material. And if it's to assuage the worries of a younger audience, this joke makes no sense without context. In an otherwise semi-serious, totally grounded action western, these characters are just making fun of each other for seemingly no reason. Remarks like this in legacy adaptations are only there to be self-referential.
Don't ever do that again.
It's not even a meta commentary, it's just looking at what came before and proudly declaring, man, man, wasn't that silly? As if this movie was ever gonna be immune from that. Jokes like "what's with the mask" are there to remind you that what they're making fun of was a product of its time, and can't you believe we used to think this was quality entertainment? Anyway, here's a white man playing a Comanche in 2013.
Come a time when good man must wear mask.
Me during COVID to be like. The rest of the movie takes place during the late 1860s across Texas. A railroad company is developing across the state, connecting rural parts of Texas to the rest of the country. Part of the development is occurring close to Comanche Nation territory. This will be important for later. As a sign of bringing law and order to the Wild West, the railroad company is bringing a brutal outlaw named Butch Cavendish to town to hang for his crimes. Which is crazy to me. You know, I'm not in favor of going easy on violent criminals, but I'm also not in favor of live streaming the execution of Ted Bundy via electric chair as sponsored by Amtrak. That just seems tacky. It should be sponsored by The Gap. Before we get to officially meet the man who would become the Lone Ranger, we get a glimpse of the horrid CGI that's going to be in store for us with this sweeping shot of a herd of buffalo. Listen, I'm sure that looked really good for the Polar Express in 2005, but this is 2013. It's also not an animated movie. I'd say this looks like horse shit, but these are buffalo. So it looks like buffalo shit. Okay, now we get to meet our protagonist, John Reed, who's glancing over the menu for tonight's dinner. Yummy. Yeah, it's pretty crazy how terribly both of these leads have aged in this movie. Guarantee if there were any chance of Lone Ranger getting a sequel, it is not gonna happen now if either one of the leads are still Armie Hammer or Johnny Depp. It's not just John and all these missionaries on the train. Criminal at large Butch Cavendish is being transported to Colby, Texas, just a few cars over. Now, if you ask me, I wouldn't suggest the transporting of a violent criminal who is also rumored to be a cannibal also be on the same train as a bunch of random fucking civilians, but what do I know? This is also the Old West. Having any sort of procedure for law or policing was kind of like freeform jazz back in the day. But wait, it's not just John and Cavendish and a bunch of missionaries on this train. Fucking Tonto's here too. Because of course he is, that omnipotent fucking bastard. Cavendish and his posse stage a breakout, but John, being the lawyer, district attorney, does his very best to prevent the outlaw's escape or Tonto's murder of Cavendish. Of course, John's just one naive guy and fails at apprehending Cavendish. But that doesn't stop John and Tonto from working together to escape the soon-to-derail train.
Going somewhere?
Yes.
No. No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes.
Where are you looking? It doesn't work if you're looking at the camera.
One thing I really dislike about this movie is that you can tell Johnny Depp isn't really trying. When he isn't trying, he's just Jack Sparrow. And sure, I get it. If I were Gore Verbinski and I just got done doing those pirate movies and Rango with my best buddy Johnny D, I'd probably want to cast him in my Lone Ranger movie too. But even if Johnny Depp were full-blooded Comanche, he's just fucking lazy in this. I'm just watching Jack Sparrow in a cowboy movie. Speaking of rehashing stuff from the Pirates movies, did they really just take parts of Jack Sparrow's costume and throw it onto Tonto in this one? Am I the only one seeing that? With the help of John's Texas Ranger brother Dan, the duo detach the engine from the other train cars, ensuring the safety of everyone else on the train, while John and Tonto go careening off the end of the line. As lucky as they all are to survive this, I don't think you can just go flying into the underside of a train and not break your back. A little nitpick, otherwise, this is actually a pretty cool sequence. The CG isn't great, Depp is playing the hits, and outside this scene, I don't really care about any of these characters, but if there's one thing Gore Verbinski can deliver on, it's unique action set pieces. It's no giant wheel from Pirates 2, but hey, it's fun.
Hey, hold it right there. I'm afraid I have to take you in. It's nothing personal.
I don't know, man. You seem pretty hell-bent on arresting this dude after a near-death experience. I can't think of anyone else going out of their way to do something like this if it weren't personal. Like, holy shit, man, just let him go. I haven't mentioned her just yet, but this is the first interaction between John and his brother's wife, Rebecca, Armie Hammer's lunch from earlier. They don't really give Rebecca much to do other than hate being married to Dan and wanting to fuck John. Like, every scene when someone mentions Dan to her, she's like, oh god, not that fucking guy, not my fucking husband. And whenever John and Rebecca are in the same room as each other or within eyesight of one another, they're having intense eye sex. Since John and Rebecca are playing catch up in the jail 2 feet away from Tonto's cell, every other line they exchange gets a live Tonto reaction, like his face is supposed to be an audience laugh track from a sitcom.
You got a place to stay?
No, not as yet.
Well, you should stay with us at Willow Creek.
Anyways, here's Tonto straight up doing magic. If you're wondering if they ever follow this up, don't worry, they don't. Dan and the rest of the Rangers are instructed by the railroad man. His name is Cole, by the way. Holy shit, his name is Cole? Coal? Like what they put in the train? Like in a railroad? Like the fucking fuel of a train? His name is Cole? I just got that now. That's so fucking stupid. Cole instructs Dan and his posse to recapture Cavendish and to bring him to justice. Dan promotes John from district attorney to Texas Ranger. I don't know if that's actually a promotion. And now John can accompany Dan on the hunt for Bill Cavendish.
It's a nice hat, by the way. They didn't have a bigger one?
What the hell? Oh my God, no way.
I know I was just lamenting about movies making fun of their own source material, but he is right. That is a ridiculously big hat. Like, I looked up pictures of the original Lone Ranger, and yeah, a dude's hat was not that fucking big. After some time on the trail, the group stumbles upon a potential lead. Unfortunately, it's not a lead, though. It's an ambush. The attackers nearly get a squad wipe, but they stop shooting so Dan and John can have one final heart-to-heart.
Harold, you're okay. You're okay. You can be fine.
She always loved you. Take care of her for me.
Hey, I know I'm dying right now, but I just want you to know that I'm real sad that I never got to see you make a cuck out of me. I love you, big brother. Almost as much as I'm gonna love fucking your wife.
Let's go! I'm sick of her ass. I'm sick of that shit!
The ambush was perpetrated by none other than Cavendish and his gang. As Dan lies dying, Cavendish takes a prize while living up to the legend of being a depraved cannibal. Oh man, that looks so good.
That's not right. It can't be right. They're dead. All dead. Even Dan.
Stop interrupting. There's like 2 hours left in this goddamn movie, kid. There's 2 hours left in this goddamn movie? We're like 40 minutes in. Jesus Christ. Fucking, all right, we gotta get moving. So Tonto gives the dead Rangers a semi-proper burial when an elusive white horse appears at John's grave.
No. Half-wit, wet brain. Him, great warrior.
So it's not really clear here. Like, it seems like the horse is the one who picks who becomes the chosen one, or the spirit walker as Tonto refers to them. But Tonto then mentions something about the Great Father and how he got to pick. So he calls the horse stupid at one point. Honestly, I think Tonto's the one who's stupid here, because out of all the dudes there that are potential spirit walker candidates, you were talking to John like 2 seconds ago. Like, that's your guy. He literally came back right in front of you. John experiences an epiphany of sorts before he comes to, and we get this sick shot of his bare dogs. Cool.
Okay. All right.
John catches up with Tonto, and Tonto explains the whole spirit walker shtick to John. John doesn't seem to buy it, but Tonto isn't done with him just yet. He explains to John that he still has beef with Cavendish, and John owes him for denying the kill.
Ow!
Bird, angry.
Oh, phew, I thought we were going to get good characterization for Tonto there for a second. Good thing they threw in that Sparrowism at the end there. Tonto also tells John about Cavendish's escape and how there was probably a mole in Dan's search party working for Cavendish. Nearly an hour into the film, and John finally dons the hat, mask, and badge to become the Lone Ranger. The pair make their way to a brothel in somewhere. It's not clear where a lot of this takes place in relation to one another. There's some scenes where you're going to get a montage of somebody going on the whole journey, multi-day long journey of trying to get from point A to point B. And then sometimes you'll just get people walking into the door of the place they need to be like 2 seconds after they realize that's where they need to go.
How do you know all this?
The vision said it would be so.
Hi, Tonto.
Oh, dude, that's so sick. When the movie can't decide whether to do the Native American have great vision trope or just make him be Jack Sparrow, they do both. That's crazy. I didn't know you could just do both. LR and Tonto find the owner of the brothel, played by Helena Bonham Carter, and there's this really dumb bit they do about health code violations, trying to leverage information out of her about the whereabouts of Cavendish and his posse. I'm sorry. I don't believe for a second that anyone really gave a shit about health code violations, let alone the existence of a health code in the 1860s. I'm just going off of vibes here. I'm not speaking from a place of authority on that. Like, maybe that was a thing. Maybe people did care. The joke is out of place. It goes on for too long. They commit way too hard to the health code bit. This should have been cut. This is bad. This was bad.
A fairly sinister looking jar of pickles on the bar.
Pickles.
Unrefrigerated.
Look at this. Danny.
I seen it.
But you served it. So understand you're cooked up. You then hold it in your hands, look at it, and say to yourself, this isn't right. Correct?
But they eventually find out from the owner that Dan and the mole and his party were at the brothel not too long ago, squabbling over a hunk of rock.
Do not touch rock.
Well, yeah, man, you gotta ask him first. Dwayne, can I touch you?
Of course, Chris. Go right ahead.
John touches this cursed rock and we see, holy shit, we have actual footage. We have actual footage of Armie Hammer being a cannibal. Send that to the court. Send him to jail. Put him in jail immediately. Just before John learns about the importance of this rock, their meeting is cut short by a literal lynch mob. I'm not joking. I'm not using that term lightly. A fucking lynch mob shows up to kill Tonto because there are reports of Comanche randomly attacking white settlers in the region. As John and Tonto manage to get out of Dodge, Rebecca is holed up at her homestead with her son and this guy. His name's Joe. He won't be here for long, unfortunately.
What the hell? How's this guy fucking following me? Come on, fuck off!
John and Tonto arrive at the aftermath of the homestead takeover, noticing that this place isn't exactly deserted.
Becca and Danny, where are they? You tell me where they are, or I'll let the Indian do what he wants to you.
What does he want to do?
Subi will.
I wonder why Disney didn't market this movie as featuring their first gay cowboy character. They seem so proud of each and every one of their first gay characters in all their films. Be proud of this one. This is your first gay cowboy and somehow his name isn't Woody. If you couldn't tell from the fact that man was not a Native American, as it seems to not matter in this movie, we've seen that man before. He's a member of Butch Cavendish's gang. We get confirmation in the next scene that it was Cavendish and his gang that have been posing as Comanche, attacking settlements and taking prisoners. So Cavendish and his gang are making it seem like the Comanche have broken the treaty. Meanwhile, John and Tonto learn there's been railroad tracks installed in Comanche territory. They also get kidnapped. I'm fucking exhausted, man. It's like 4 in the morning. I want to be done with this movie. They get kidnapped, this time by the actual Comanche, who then explain why Tonto is the way that he is. As a little boy, Tonto was manipulated by 2 white men into showing them where the river near his tribe began, as there were flakes of silver in the water. Tonto traded this information for a cheap pocket watch, and the 2 men slaughtered Tonto's tribe, ensuring the existence of this silver's source remained a secret. One of those men was Butch Cavendish. The pair make their way to the source of the silver, where Butch and his gang have a mining operation set up. John and Tonto stage an ambush on Cavendish, but when the time comes to dispatch the killer, John keeps Tonto from killing Cavendish a second time. At this rate, I think everybody just hated Dan. Like, if you let a guy go who would go on to kill your brother, and then you end up finding this dude again, and you didn't kill him, I'll be honest, I think you just hated your brother. John goes to deliver Cavendish to the arms of justice as we learn that Rebecca and Danny are fine, totally fine, and unkidnapped. I'm gonna let you in on some inside baseball. I did a little tactic called not showing you everything. That's a cool little trick that we editors like to do. The last time Rebecca and Danny were on screen, they were actually being released by the mole from Dan's posse. Guess that guy can't pick a side, god damn. When an unidentified figure killed the mole and presumably made off with Rebecca and Danny. We now know that that was Cole, the railroad guy from earlier. But if Cole himself was there to rescue Rebecca and Danny, then why did he just let Butch and the rest of his gang go if this took place like 100 yards away from them? Before we can find out, John drops Cavendish off at the doorstep of Cole's train car. John gets invited in, he gets wined and dined a little bit, then Cole asks John what he can do for him as a thank you for apprehending Cavendish.
Comanche didn't attack those settlements. It was Butch Cavendish and his gang. All for this.
Cole responds to this by essentially confessing to John that he and Cavendish are brothers, meaning he was the second man who butchered Tonto's tribe, and that the two men had been working together to instigate a war with the Comanche and export the silver reserve to San Francisco, securing a fat bag. Just like that. He just kind of up and gives away the entire evil plan. He's just like, you got me. I'm the villain. Like, he wasn't really even suspicious of that. Why'd you just tell him? It's played in this, like, villain monologue way where, like, he tells John all this information knowing that he's about to kill him, but he didn't try, like, anything else. He didn't try talking to John, maybe getting him on your side, maybe blackmailing him to get him to drop the whole thing and not pursue this anymore, or, you know, just kill him before you tell him all this shit. That way, when, like, you inevitably fail at killing him, he doesn't have all that info to come back and bite you in the ass. This whole exchange has turned John. He no longer believes that blindly aligning himself with the law and order is a just way of life. This man is not the Lone Ranger anymore. He is the Lone Danger. I am not in danger, Skyler. I am the danger. That's when we start to come full circle. The bank robbery from earlier wasn't for cash. It was for a secret reserve of explosives. How they knew it was there, I don't know. I've watched this movie like 3 goddamn times this week. I can't answer most of the questions you have. And then the pivotal climax occurs. There are 2 giant fuck-off trains just duking it out, just going really fast on those railways. Butch gets his comeuppance, he gets smushed like a bug, and Cole dies in maybe one of the worst on-screen deaths I've ever seen. Not because it's like particularly gruesome or anything like that. It just looks really bad. It looks terrible. Rebecca and John smooch, but you can't let an old habit die hard. John's the Lone Ranger now. He can't be tied down by a ball and chain. And thus comes a close to the Wild West exhibit. The little boy leaving with more questions than answers as the man who had relayed him all this information vanishes. I actually didn't know this until I rewatched it just this week. Half of the credits is just Tonto walking in a straight line in the desert, just kind of forever. Just forever. That's the Lone Ranger. Yeah, if you couldn't tell by the end there, I really started to lose my marbles a little bit. This movie is not great. It definitely has its moments. Anything I glazed over that was a huge action set piece, that was one of the better moments of the movie. If you like the original Pirates movies and you're looking for some fun, turn your brain off action, there's some genuinely pretty good moments in this movie. Overall, the Lone Ranger, yeah. Buying shit from Granger, gun of the Lone Ranger, baby in the manger, Skyler, I'm the danger. Boom.